Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is Thursday, May 28th, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the World Crypto Network. The price of Bitcoin is up 3.3% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,474, a high of 9,518, and a low of 9,065. That's $1 for 10,555 Satoshis. Volume is pretty high for a Thursday, with 6,489 Bitcoins changing hands. The market continues to lean margin long, with 80% of the market heading that direction. Bitcoin dominance was at 67%. Like this show, subscribe, get ready for the show. Well, we know where we're going, but we don't know where we've been. And we know what we're knowing, but we can't say what we've seen. And we're not little children, and we know what we want. And the future is certain. Give us time to work it out. We're on a road to nowhere. Come on inside. Taking that ride to nowhere. We'll take that ride. I'm feeling okay this morning. And you know, we're on the road to paradise. Here we go. Here we go. We're on a ride to nowhere. Come on inside. Taking that ride to nowhere. We'll take that ride. Maybe you wonder where you are. I don't care. Here is where time is on your side. Take you there. Take you there. We're on a road to nowhere. We're on a road to nowhere. We're on a road to nowhere. There's a city in my mind. Come along and take that ride. And it's all right. Baby, it's all right. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day. And it's all right. Baby, it's all right. Would you like to come along and you can help me sing this song? And it's all right. Baby, it's all right. We're on a road to nowhere. And one more. Trudging slowly over wet sand, back to the beach, back to the bench, where your clothes were stolen. This is the coastal town that they forgot to close down. Armageddon, come Armageddon, come Armageddon, come. Every day is like Sunday. Every day is silent and gray. Hitch a ride on the promenade. Etch a postcard. How I dearly wish I was not here. In this seaside town that they forgot to bomb. Come, 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 nuclear bomb. Every day is like Sunday. Every day is silent and gray. Trudging back over pebbles and sand, and a strange dust lands on your hands, and on your face, on your face, on your face, on your face. Every day is like Sunday. Win yourself a cheap tray. Share some greased tea with me. Every day is silent and gray. Oh, do we really need this one still? No, they get it. No, they need more. The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming, hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in the sands of the desert, a shape with a lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it, real shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again. But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast! Its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. We're going to continue our discussion of Twitter's Kobayashi Maru, the no-win situation. To be caught between a rock and a hard place. If you are caught between a rock and a hard place, you are in a difficult situation where you have to choose between two equally unpleasant courses of action. He's occupying the space he loves to occupy, where people are caught between a rock and a hard place. At least it's not the rock. Jokes. The price of Bitcoin is up 3.66% in the last 24 hours, another 0.3 or so since we've started this show, with a last of 9,520, a high of 9,529. We almost caught the high, and a low of 9,065. That's $1 for 10,526 Satoshis as the market continues to roll up and down. Hey, there's another block. Bitcoin price surges past 9.4 thousand as a week of gains targets 5 figures. 10,000 is edging ever closer for Bitcoin, which has gained $800 in the past few days and taken little notice of resistance levels. Wow, wow. 3-day price gains near 8% for Bitcoin. At press time, $9,400 had just been clinched, rising to $9,460 before a slight reversal. Those levels come a day after Bitcoin reclaimed the 9,000 and 9,200 zones, respectively. 9,500 is the next target. Bom, bom, bom. Goldman Sachs lists 5 reasons why Bitcoin is not an asset class nor a suitable investment. Thank you, Goldman Sachs. Bitcoin price tests 9.4 thousand as demand for put option drops. Nobody wants to short Bitcoin anymore. And it's the price, the price, the price, the price, and the price. Bitcoiners go wild after Goldman revives Tulip Mania comparison. Yes, we love that Tulip Mania comparison. Nothing better than Tulip Mania and Bitcoin. Quick palate cleanser before we move on. I'm continuing my quest to watch all movies released in 2020. Usually this wouldn't be possible, but there are so few movies released this year. I've got a chance at it. I watched Doolittle. It was not great. Actually, the animation at the beginning is better than the whole movie. I watched The Gentleman. It was pretty good. It's a Guy Ritchie heist film, similar to Lock, Stock, and what's this other one with Brad Pitt as a single title? But anyway, it'll come to me. Lock, Stock, Guy Ritchie. Wasn't heist. Snatch. It's called Snatch. But it was similar to Snatch, but with McConaughey, and based in America. Check out The Gentleman. But really, I'm here to recommend The Hunt. Check out The Hunt. Not just does it have a cool name that sounds like my name, it's actually a fun movie worth watching. 12 strangers wake up in a clearing. They don't know where they are or how they got here. They've been chosen for a very specific purpose. The Hunt. And this is a rare movie. I would watch it again. I would watch The Hunt again. And I just watched it like yesterday. I also checked out Bloodshot. It's kind of a superhero movie. It's a little over the top. After watching something so cool like The Hunt, it was tough to take. And I checked out Onward, which was another Pixar animated movie. It's okay. It's kind of for kids, though. And now, into the Kobayashi Maru. How would you face Klingon cruisers off the port bow? The ship Kobayashi Maru has wandered into Klingon space. Should you try to rescue it? Should you retreat? Should you risk your entire crew to rescue the Kobayashi Maru? And now we find out what Twitter will do. As we talked about yesterday, Twitter took the middle path. Twitter didn't ban the president. Twitter didn't do nothing. Twitter took what they thought was the middle path, but they didn't understand who they were up against. When you fight Donald Trump, he fights everything to the end. And Twitter also didn't understand that they messed with one of the major reasons that we're going to be rejecting the results of the 2020 election. This election is false because the vote-in-mail ballots were fake. Therefore, we're going to have to go right down to the line, and we're going to find out if the Capitol Police remove the president or not after the election. Get ready. Twitter thought they took the middle road, but they actually undercut a major argument for re-electing, for rejecting the election results, and must be punished. Trump to issue social media order after Twitter fact checks his tweets. That's right, he's coming straight at Twitter. He's going to issue an executive order intended to curtail legal protections for social media companies. Order is still being drafted and could change, but is expected to set off a legal battle over government authority to regulate private publishing platforms. This is a complex issue, as we've discussed many times on this show. Corporations are now people. Therefore, if corporations are people, corporations have the right to free speech. Twitter, therefore, then has the right to not only regulate the speech on their platform, but also to label it as with a fact check and so forth. It's also gotten more complex. Zuckerberg is in the game. Mark Zuckerberg going on TV siding against Twitter, saying that Facebook or any internet platform should not be the arbiters of truth. He then calls it dangerous to decide what is truth. This is beautiful. We've gone completely postmodern. This is the place you don't want to go, right? Especially if you're an enemy of thinking, because this is going to require all of your thinking. Zuckerberg is arguing that there is no such thing as truth. It's very subtle. You have to read it in there. He says it's dangerous to decide what is true. Well, you have to unpack that. Why is it dangerous to decide what is true? Well, because there is no objective truth, is what he's really saying. That, there is no white is black. 2 + 2 is not 4. Like, white is black. You have no way of making any kind of claim in this post-truth, postmodern world that Zuckerberg's talking about. Meanwhile, Jack over at Twitter has tried to put out a claim of truth, right? Jack has established vote by mail is not a corrupt system. That's the line that Twitter's decided to die on. It's a pretty amazing line that they've chosen, right? Of all the things, it could have been the, accusing people of murder without evidence, could have been insulting people directly, could have been starting wars with other countries, insulting other countries. It could have just been anything, right? But they decided that this is the line. Vote by mail is safe. It's the craziest line for Twitter to decide to die on. And yet it's so horrible to his plan, right? You have this great plan. You're going to reject the election results. So obviously, if you lose, you have to pay your loans, right? So you have a big problem. In the middle of the term, your loans come up, right? If you're the president, they're going to give you an extension on those loans at least another 4 years, right? If you're not the president, those loans are going to come due. So you have to be the president. So no matter election, right? It doesn't really matter. You have to win. Well, if you can't win, you have to reject the results. And now this pesky, stupid social media company, this nothing that you're frankly addicted to, right? This nothing that you've been using for 4 years to talk directly to your audience is now threatening you on the very thing that you need to get rid of those pesky election results. Fortunately, there is no such thing as truth. So you got that going for you. So that's good. Imagine if we had truth. So yeah, Zuckerberg is sticking with, why is Zuckerberg arguing this? It's not, probably he doesn't actually believe this, right? We're not going to go that far. More likely, Zuckerberg's theory of the open platform protects Facebook, right? This way, anything that goes on Facebook that's hate speech or negative speech or hurts people or just bad stuff, he can say, well, we're an open platform, right? We don't say what's true or not. We allow this kind of bad thing and we allow this kind of good thing, and that makes us open. But really at the core here, what we're really talking about is that we built the internet wrong. We all watched everyone do it. We all watched them build it wrong. The original internet was an open platform. So these things that Zuckerberg was saying would be true. But we've all seen what that kind of an internet leads to, right? The real spewing of hate speech, the real far left and far right, the actual discussion, right? The dirty underbelly. So instead, they built this goofy corporate internet on top of that, right? The Facebook and the Twitter, basically AOLs, right? Walled gardens. And they built this newfangled internet, and all the normal people loved it. All the people that hated old internet, especially the way that it was dirty and anonymous and relatively free, like freedom of expression. You could express yourself negatively, usually. They hated that, right? And they got rid of it. And they got this Facebook, Twitter internet. But then they made some kind of a mistake, partially because of the way that the company sold it, right? The thing that Zuckerberg's saying about open platform, that's the same thing they used to say about the old internet. So in this way, Twitter and Zuckerberg kind of took parts of the old internet and then used it to sell their new platforms. Twitter originally had an API, right? You could dial into Twitter's data and you could show it on your own webpage or in your own app, right? Twitter was an open platform in that way. Then Twitter dialed it back, right? The same thing happened with Google. The same thing happened with Facebook. Same thing just keeps happening over and over again. So now that we've built up this big corporate internet that everybody likes, everyone has these false conceptions, these false beliefs that this is the original internet. And so they go on Facebook and they say crazy stuff. And then they get, beat down and they get knocked off Facebook, or they get banned or warned. And they're like, what is this? I thought this was the internet. I thought this is where I could say my crazy stuff, right? But that internet was the other internet. The internet is not owned by anyone. And, obviously we still have domain names. We're still using this completely controlled system where if your other internet was really that good, they could just cut off your domain name. It would slow you down. So we're still a far way away from that other internet, but everyone already thinks it's here. They're already like, I'm on the internet. I'm on the Facebooks. I can express myself, but you can really express yourself in the narrow band of Facebook expression. And what's funny is that really even comes true to the president, right? And formerly candidate Donald Trump and now President Donald Trump, theoretically, are both under the same Twitter laws that the rest of us are under, right? We can't spread hate speech. We can't accuse people of murder without evidence. And apparently, the crime of all crimes, we can't speak out against vote by mail. Now, I like vote by mail, so this is convenient for me, right? But it could be anything else. It could be that chocolate is better than vanilla, or that caramels are better than toffee, and that Twitter has decided this is the line that Twitter has, is going to die on. In Swift, the big debate was about how you crack your eggs. Do you crack them on the side, or do you crack them on the top, or even the bottom, right? I mean, complete madness, right? Different ways of cracking eggs, which is, of course, a metaphor for religion. But don't read too much into Jonathan Swift, although I have been thinking about reading Modest Proposal again. So reasonable. Anyway, Trump crossed the line. He's on Twitter. It's a controlled platform. Even he doesn't really understand. He still kind of thinks it should be the internet. Right now, they're working on these executive orders where they're going to try to restrict Twitter or restrict Facebook. This is the thing that Zuckerberg's been arguing against the whole time. He wants to be an open platform like Craigslist, like eBay. And then, of course, this circles right back around to Bitcoiners, because one of our biggest cases is, of course, Ross Ulbricht, who basically ran a Craigslist for drugs, right? He ran an eBay for drugs, and a bunch of people used it. And then it turned out, instead of going to the venturecapital.com Hall of Fame for doing a heck of a lot with nothing, he went to jail, right? So we have this kind of double standard where it's okay to run one of these for-profit websites for the money, but it's not okay to run it for whatever Ross was running it for, because it was, against the law because of drug laws, which seems so ridiculous. Like that TV show Weeds, it's a great show. You try to rewatch it now, it doesn't make any sense at all. They're carrying around this marijuana and they're saying it's illegal and that the cops are after them. And everyone I know now, it's like, wow, you get that from the store. Oh, you just go to the store. It's all legal now. So it's very strange to see these things change so quickly. But it does actually matter whether or not Facebook and Twitter are open platforms, whether Craigslist is an open platform, whether the Silk Road was an open platform. These things matter. Should we hear what Zuckerberg said? Yeah, I know what he's going to say. I mean, he's just going to basically argue from a very corporate and managed perspective that Facebook is an open platform and we can't be responsible. It's a strong argument. I think that, how did Twitter lose? I think Twitter lost because they didn't really consider the success of the nuclear option. Removing the president entirely from Twitter for violation of the rules, first of all, makes your rules strong. Now all you have to do is hold up your rules and ban anyone else. And second of all, it gives you a clear separation of the time when you're allowing the president to use your platform to spread his message, which is usually bad, or the time where after that, right? So Twitter failed to set down that line. Now, of course, we all know, let's not be in denial, the president would have his own kind of shout Twitter thing up within a day or two. Conservatives would follow it. His speech would continue, right? Let's not doubt for a second that everyone's favorite word around here is censor. Like, Twitter would not be successful in censoring the president. They would be able to remove him from their platform, which would be interesting. In a lot of ways, Twitter would be removing the value from their platform, right? The idea that this kind of discussion on both sides can continue is a lot of their value. But unfortunately, if you really look at this discussion, like quantitatively, really spread it out, look at the numbers, there are so many bots. Are we really having this grand Athenian discussion that we think we're having? Or are we having a grand Athenian bot discussion, right? If we lost it, what would we really be losing? Mainly just the illusion that we're having this conversation, the illusion that propagandists are using the platform fairly. But you lose the ability to mark the propaganda, right? The big victory here is that Twitter has taken a line in the sand and drawn that there is truth, that there's no reported fraud in vote by mail. Like maybe that means everyone's working on an Ocean's 11 type scam to steal thousands of ballots from the mail, hundreds of thousands, and to arrange them to have any kind of effect at all, rather than just hacking the tabulators or the voting machines at the source, which I've said forever, and they did in 2004. That's where Twitter's decided to draw the line. So that's absolute truth. So that is the line of truth. And then now the president has responded. He's going to attack them. He's going to try to break them up and tax them, take away their corporate freedoms, their corporate freedom of speech. Good luck with that. That's not going to work, especially with his court. They're the ones that gave them the corporate powers. So, but it's interesting to see Zuckerberg and Dorsey now. Very clearly two different sides to this. Now, I did like one of the tweets. I don't know if I have it pulled out here, but one of the tweets said what Twitter should do is they should go back and they should retroactively mark all of the president's questionable statements. Now, that would be a power move. That would be we've been working on this fact engine for a long time, and we're not just going to mark one person's tweets. We're going to mark all kinds of tweets. We're going to establish some standard of truth. And then now we've looped back into why it's such a problem, right? And once again, why this is the Kobayashi Maru. Twitter had no chance. This is lose-lose. This is no win. Now that Twitter is the arbiter of truth, they can't just decide simple things like vote by mail. They're going to have to decide more complex things like the president accusing people of murder, or other statements which may be kind of weasel statements, right? So they're in the middle. They wiggle. They're left and right. They may be true. So a lot of crazy stuff going on with Twitter these days. Just imagine if the president responded as quickly to the pandemic as he did to being fact-checked by his favorite social media outlet, whose rules he has enjoyed breaking daily for years. Is a pretty good comparison between the way that it took months and months to react to the pandemic and only hours to react to Twitter. Maybe we should have had the pandemic on Twitter. Maybe he would have seen it that way. We need to be clear on one point. Trump is punishing Twitter for the act of supplying voters with information, educating them on voting options amidst a pandemic. The sin here is that Twitter did this in a manner that undermined Trump's deranged efforts to mislead them with lies. And it really is down to this kind of idea of truth. As to, on one side, Trump is spreading his version that vote by mail is unsafe, which threatens a lot of people, makes them go out into the street in a pandemic. Whereas Twitter is protecting the truth that vote by mail is safe, especially during a pandemic. So we've gotten right down to the lines. It's just like that fantastic book by Neil Stephenson, Fall. Everyone should go read Fall by Neil Stephenson. Just came out, and it's all about this idea of truth. And there's a small city in Utah, Moab, Utah, that's wiped off the map by a nuclear explosion. And most of the book is kind of about whether or not that happened and what the idea of truth is. And then there's a lot more too, but it's a great book. Check out Neil Stephenson's Fall. Speaking of fall, breaking news. U.S. first quarter GDP falls 5% versus a 4.8% drop expected. So even though they were expecting a very bad number, they got an even worse number. GDP, gross domestic product, is how much stuff we're actually making, what we're actually selling. And get ready for this to be worse as we see the truly affected pandemic quarters. I remember these run about a quarter behind. This was last quarter. We want to see the next quarter. We've got bad news. A study finds that only half of Americans would get the coronavirus vaccine, far below herd immunity levels. And we need about 70% of the population to have the vaccine so that we can achieve herd immunity. If we don't achieve herd immunity, it means that the virus will continue to live among us. So those who don't have the vaccine will be carriers for the virus, getting it over and over again, spreading it to their friends and family and loved ones, making stronger versions of the virus, improving it by killing it and bringing it back over and over again. So there is a reason to take the vaccine when it comes out, but we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. And if you have safety concerns, we'll have to look at those. But for right now, it looks like 50% of America does not want the vaccine, although presumably if they keep dying off from the coronavirus, this number will improve through herd immunity, just like the animals. The animals that don't get the shot die off. That's fucking sad. Speaking of dying off, Brazil is working on mass graves, with experts predicting 125,000 COVID-19 deaths, topping the United States chart-topping numbers of 100,000 dead already. Brazil is a big fan of hydroxychloroquine. Looks like it's working out great. And now the news. We were supposed to have a space launch yesterday. President Trump was even there in Florida, standing by, ready to watch 2 astronauts go back to space from America for the first time in a long time. First time in 9 years. But it didn't happen because President Trump is bad luck. Shout out to Mitt Romney on Twitter. Mitt Romney says, I know Joe Scarborough. Joe is a friend of mine. I don't know TJ Kostutsis. Joe can weather vile, baseless accusations, but TJ, his heart is breaking. Enough already. And he's calling out for the president to stop attacking the widower of Joe Scarborough's staff who passed out on her desk and passed away years ago. But that's not how propaganda works. Once you bite into a sweet, juicy steak, you don't want to stop biting into it. You want to keep biting into it over and over again. That's how propaganda works. Come on, Mitt. Dozens of children handcuffed, being dragged away one by one. This is in Hong Kong. This is the beginning of the end of the Hong Kong democracy. 2 countries, 2 systems, 1 country. We've got more news on Hong Kong. I'm not sure if it's coming up right away, but the United States is looking at removing its trade partnership with Hong Kong. We're no longer going to trade with Hong Kong directly. We're just going to trade with China. This ends Hong Kong's special trading partnership. If other countries do this, it's pretty much the end of Hong Kong's value to China as an independent trading partner. China is doing this to themselves. They must have decided it's worth it. It's time to lock it down. This was pretty sad. Socially distant goodbye to their families from the astronauts as they're ready to get on the launch pad. Oh, poor kids. So yeah, that's pretty weird. Sign of the times, huh? Try to zoom in. Oh, there it is. Socially distant astronaut goodbyes. And now they're going to have to do it all over again. I've been there. I had my flight canceled for 24 hours once. It stuck. I had to go home. I had to come back to the airport. And the next launch opportunity is Saturday, May 30th at 3:22 p.m. Eastern Time. So we will try again. Hopefully the president won't be there. Jack Dorsey has a meeting, and he explains why they kept Trump's tweets about Scarborough. It's interesting. While Zuckerberg has defined this as the arbiter of truth moment, Jack dodges and basically says they've kept them because they're part of the conversation. So Jack's conversation is one where you can put invective and lies into something. Say, for example, Jack Dorsey, when did you stop beating your wife? And now all of a sudden we're having a conversation about how Jack Dorsey has been beating his wife for an unknown period of time. Obviously, this is now a justified conversation. So Jack's fallen into an unfortunate trap of propaganda, right? When you have a beer hall poots and you say, it is time, we must overthrow the government. That's a legitimate conversation. They had a discussion about it once. They went to jail. They got out. They kept having their discussion. The discussion is continuing, the conversation. So it's a very unfortunate look. Jack was in the meeting with his other executives at the annual meeting, and he said, no, we can't remove them because they're part of the conversation. Meanwhile, the conversation is no longer about vote by mail. That is the line. Murder, okay. Vote by mail. Don't touch it. Jack also said that it's critical that people take to the legal system as well as the courts. This means that Jack Dorsey knows that what he's doing is wrong. That little voice inside his head is saying, Jack, you should just remove him from the platform. He's broken all the rules. That would be standing up for the rules. So that little voice is there. But Jack says, no, I can't do that. What I need is the courts to make me do that. I need the law to make me do that. I can't stand up on my own and do that, which again is always the weakness of these corporations. They always have this board and they have these stockholders and they need to make money. And you're like, well, why don't they do the right thing? If they know what the right thing is, why don't they do it? It's because they need to be forced to. Joe Biden put out a nice message about the 100,000 lives who have been lost to the virus. President Trump eventually acknowledged it, but generally hasn't wanted to talk about the virus in a long time. Speaking of the other virus, we've got the potential, which formed later to a riot in America. Minneapolis police sprayed chemical irritants at demonstrators as they marched and protested the death of a black man at the hands of police. Once again, the previous set of demonstrators with the machine guns were not attacked, and these new demonstrators who do not have machine guns were attacked. It might also be the color of the protesters, this being a much more mixed color protesting group. The main thing to watch about this video and to be prepared for future tear gas situations and pepper spray situations like this is look at the professionals with the milk. These people are pros, right? These people, they've been to protests in the past, they've come back, and they're here to win, right? If you lose the streets, you lose the protest. So right here, people have been tear gassed. She's giving him milk to drink. He's got pepper spray in his mouth and his eyes. You want to get that milk in there, get that pepper spray out. See them pouring it on their heads and their faces there. More milk is being brought in to pour on heads and faces. We're going to see more of this as America becomes more like Hong Kong and people get used to these kind of protest tactics where the police use their large weapons force of tear gas and pepper spray to push back peaceful protesters when there simply is no answer. What is the answer? Why was this allowed to happen? It's not just the one officer who did it. It's also the other officers who watched, the other people who watched. There's quite a lot of problems going on with this most recent story, and I'm sure you've heard about it. I agree with Scott Dworkin. Twitter should add fact checks to every lie Trump has ever tweeted the second he signs this BS executive order. That would be impressive. We'll see if Twitter's ready. I'm not sure they're willing to strike back again. We saw the GDP drop. That's a major news. The President of the United States recently retweeted a video that opens with the quote, "I've come to the conclusion that the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat." So once again, a good chance for Twitter to stand up and maybe say that's not true. Put up one of those really scary flags on it. Warning, accusing your other party of being only good when they're dead is not factual. All people are good, not dead. Seems kind of obvious, but again, they've made a weak choice and they're sticking with it. Shout out to OKCoin. OKCoin is donating $100,000 to the BitPay BTC Pay server project, the open source version of what BitPay used to do. So excellent news. Shout out to Nicholas Dorier and the rest of the BTC Pay server community. Had some palate cleansers here. Last year at this time, I was on my way to Germany for the Mad Tour 4, as the Munich branch is very fond of pointing out I didn't even go to Munich, so I shouldn't be dressed like a Municher. But anyway, that's what people think that German people dress like all over. So it was pretty cool. We got to go to Essen, Germany. There's Essen right there. We went to Blockchain Hotel, a great Bitcoin conference out there in Essen, Germany. And then on to Amsterdam, where we went to the Breaking Bitcoin conference, which was held here in the Amsterdam stock market, the world's very first, oldest stock market, where, as you can see from the lights above and the large open floor, they could bring in livestock and other kinds of actual stock into the stock market. Then it was on to rainy Berlin for the Unchained conference and some statues at Museum Island. Later on, I went to Athens. It was pretty amazing. And wound up in Barcelona for another Bitcoin and blockchain conference. But that was last year. This year, I just stay home forever. John Carvalho writes, last year when everyone was stoked for Lightning, excited when Bitfinex added it. Today, I suggest everyone else should have added it too, and people want to have a conniption fit. Okay. John's been going around on Twitter asking companies to adopt the Lightning Network, hopefully getting a good response. I put a word in for Blockstream Green. I'd like to see that wallet use the Lightning Network. This way I wouldn't have to change wallets to go use Lightning, so that would be great. And it's only been a year. Still have a chance. They say that masks may only be 30% effective towards stopping the virus. We might need better masks, which we've kind of known for a while, which is why they probably didn't want to recommend masks in the first place, because eventually people would realize that they all need N95 or even N99 masks to really not spread this thing. But still, even if it stops 30%, that's still a lot more than zero. If we all wore the masks, we would have 30% less infection. The battle over Joe Biden's vice presidential candidate continues. Right here, Rachel Beitkofer, Dr. Beitkofer, is supporting Warren, saying that Warren would be a good pick. Strangely, she says the only white VP pick. It's interesting to see the boxes around Joe Biden's vice president pick. At first, he defined a box saying that he could only have a woman. Then others recently attempted to define a box that he could only have an African-American woman, making the box very small. I think it's, what's his name? Well, not Condoleezza Rice, but Ambassador Rice, the senator from California. And then, of course, the loser from the governor's race in Georgia. But here they're suggesting that Elizabeth Warren would be a good pick because she would pick up the left wing and make the Biden campaign strong. I would like to see that too, but I don't think that we're going to see Elizabeth Warren. I think that we're going to see Stacey Abrams, vice presidential pick. Rebuffing criticism, China moves forward with Hong Kong security law. Oh well, so much for that. We've got a blockbuster report that a huge conflict of interest by Mike Pence's chief of staff, Mark Short. The FBI must investigate this. Short is leading the office running the coronavirus task force. He also holds major investments in companies affected by the pandemic response. So if they were going to choose which mask manufacturer to choose, it would be better for Mr. Short if it was 3M, because he has hundreds of thousands of dollars of 3M stock. This is why when you enter the government, you're supposed to divest your stock. They say in this case, he did try to divest his stock, but he wasn't able to get the tax cut that he thought he would get, so he decided to just be unethical. That's a great choice. You have the choice of divesting or being unethical. So he's just continuing to be unethical. And the vice president was like, I'm fine with that. Everybody's unethical here. You don't need it. This might be the future. Get ready. This is called the Visor, and you thought it was a joke a couple of weeks ago. VYZR, but now it's very real. As it says in the description, it's not just stupid looking. It actually creates an airlock right there above your shoulders and has its own air supply that you would carry with it with filters. So it says right here it's got 12 hours of filtered air on one charge. It gets a positive pressure secondary seal, and it filters air coming in and out through the filter that you're wearing on your backpack. So not the best thing in the world, but maybe not the worst. I don't know. The VYZR. What do you guys think in the chat? Let me know if you're going to be buying one of these, wearing the human condom out in the world. Just want to stick my little head out there and see what's going on. Hey, it turns out Illinois is the only state that has met all federal criteria for reopening. They're going to move to phase 3 on Friday. So if you live in Illinois, congratulations. Give yourself a round of applause. You're 1 out of 50, and you're the only one that they say should officially be reopening. But just ignore that, everyone else. Meanwhile, Dorsey out of Pennsylvania, the GOP put them at risk by hiding members' positive COVID-19 tests. That's right. As the Pennsylvania GOP, the Pennsylvania Republicans, were seeking to downplay the virus and not close their state. Several of them had contracted the virus, then lied about it, and kept the story underground and behind closed doors. That's right. They were downplaying it. They were voting against it. They were voting against closing. They were trying to reopen their state. At the same time, multiple members were caught with the virus. So complete denial here. It just really doesn't matter. As the Pennsylvania Democrats are calling them, they're saying callous liars, that they just lie without feeling, and they just don't care about the consequences. They just want just the money, just the money. Joe Biden is getting pretty strong with his Twitter game. Here are 2 tweets from the same day in October. President Biden says, "We are not prepared for a pandemic. Trump has rolled back progress that President Obama and I made to strengthen global health security. We need leadership that builds public trust, focuses on the real threats, and mobilizes the world to stop outbreaks before they reach our shores." And this was October 25th, 2019. So already Biden was worried about pandemics back in October. Then the response from President Trump: "To Tim, the button on the iPhone was far better than the swipe." Of course, he's writing to Tim Cook or Tim Apple, a.k.a. Tim Apple. The button was far better than the swipe. Heck of a president. Heck of a job. I was just thinking about Oprah's book club, and it feels a lot like Oprah lost everyone in the book club when she tried to make them read Faulkner. And then East of Eden, a long, hard Steinbeck instead of one of the light, shorter ones. And it really does matter how you try to read literature. You should start off with something good like Dostoevsky's Notes from Underground, right? Something that's fun, something that'll engage you, like Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels. Something that has something different, like a story inside it. And then work on the harder ones later. I think she went the wrong way there. Shout out to the Roku. I don't know if you guys have one of those Roku apps on your TV or a smart TV, but they now have an Apple TV app. So previously you could only watch your Apple TV movies and iTunes and stuff on your Apple TV. Now you can just install the app on your Roku and maybe even one of your other players like Samsung or Sony or something. So it's starting to get out there. HBO Max is getting out there. The streaming wars are heating up. Netflix, Hulu, Peacock, CBS All Access, Disney Plus. There are so many. Check it out. Death Valley is officially corona-free. Well, at least outside. It could still live inside and inside of people. But the highs today in Las Vegas, we've got a high of 108. Mesquite at 107. St. George, 104. Checking out Death Valley with a high on this board of 120 degrees. That's more than 42 degrees Celsius. For those of you keeping score, Laughlin, 111. So it's a nice cool one out there today in Las Vegas. Andrew Yang says that 3-day weekends are better than 2-day weekends. We should look at 4-day work weeks. Studies show that we would be just as productive. It would create jobs at the margins and improve mental health. Man, Andrew Yang, he should run for president. I'd vote for that guy. And I read an article about Joe DiMaggio's other unbreakable record in addition to the 56-game hitting streak. Joe DiMaggio also holds the record. He had a 61-game hitting streak. It was the strikeouts versus home runs. He's absolutely amazing at strikeouts versus home runs. No one's ever going to beat him for least number of strikeouts, most number of home runs over the season. So incredible stuff from Joe DiMaggio. And there's yet another unfortunate incident in the United States in our continuing history of race relations. We saw a little bit of this yesterday. The guy was on the ground. He had blown a stop sign. He ran through a stop sign. He might have done a roll through. He was on the ground. His grandmother came out and tried to stop them. They then they shoved the grandmother to the side. There's a video pleading. Here we can see the video of the kid on the ground. What was his alleged crime? Rolling through a stop sign. All these guns are drawn. Just happened again. So it just keeps happening. But that's it. We survived the news. We made it. We made it through the news. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. Let's check out the chat. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share. Subscribe down below. Hit the bell for notifications. That way you'll know about when this show is on. We're saying hello to the chat. We're going to try to do phone calls. If you guys would like to call in, you can call in now at 1-518-600-1949 or on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. It's looking a little quiet in the chat, but I'm going to try to find the call now text is gone. Well, that's a good place for it to be. Anyway, here it is. You can call now at 1-518-600-1949 or on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. Oh, I love this in the chat. It says, did Jack Dorsey rape and murder a young girl in 1990? Because I've heard that. I've heard that Jack Dorsey raped and murdered a young girl in 1990. That's a classic Bob Saget joke. Good stuff. So heading towards the end of the show, they say they want Joe Biden for president. I agree with that. They think the audio's low. I don't think it's that low. I think the audio's pretty loud. Just turn it up more. They think Jared could save us. There's a lot of hope out there. But I think we're going to head towards the end of the show for today. Just going to recap the price of Bitcoin, which looks like it's declined a little bit while we've not been watching it. So we just need to go back to watching it all the time. That's the only way to keep it from going down. The price of Bitcoin is up 2.84% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,444, a high of 9,529, and a low of 9,065. That's $1 for 10,579 Satoshis. Volume is about regular for a weekday with 6,713 Bitcoins changing hands, and the market continues to lean margin long with 80% headed that direction. Bitcoin dominance is at 67%. It's never too late to read a book and to think. Until next time, bye-bye.